For over 100 years, there's been this one really powerful idea that we've all kind of bought into. The idea that we've got this massive, untapped superpower just sitting there, locked away in our heads. But what if the whole thing, the key to unlocking all that potential, is actually a lie?
So take a look at this number. It's pretty shocking, right? A recent study found that more than half of teachers, the people we trust with our kids' brains, believe a really dangerous myth about how those brains work. And it's a myth that could be affecting how you think about your own potential right now.
And yep, this is the one, the big one. The idea that 90% of our most important organ is just asleep, waiting for something to wake it up. It's a concept that's launched movies, built entire self-help empires, and made us all believe in some hidden potential. But is any of it actually true? Let's dig in.
To really get this, we've got to rewind the clock. Because this so-called fact about our brains didn't come from some high-tech neuroscience lab. Nope. It started out more like a piece of gossip, a rumor that got twisted over decades.
So check out how this whole thing snowballed. It starts back in 1907 with a psychologist named William James. He basically just said, most people don't really live up to their full potential. He talked about our mental resources. But notice, he never ever said a number. The 10% number? That was probably just pulled out of thin air decades later and got super popular thanks to Dale Carnegie's self-help book. After that, pop culture just ran with it, and a vague inspirational thought turned into this hard, scientific-sounding, but totally fake number.
And there's actually a name for this kind of thing. It's called a neuromyth. It's an idea that sounds all sciencey, it feels true, and it spreads like crazy, but it's really just based on a misunderstanding of the real science. And the 10% idea? It's pretty much the king of all neuromyths.
And here's why this matters. This isn't just some harmless piece of trivia you'd hear at a party. This 100-year-old rumor has real effects, especially in the one place where understanding potential is everything, our schools.
Remember that number from the start? This is it. A study of elementary school teachers in Costa Rica found that 51%, yep, more than half, either believe the 10% myth is true or they just aren't sure. Think about that. The people responsible for shaping young minds are often working with a completely wrong blueprint of how the mind even works.
And it turns out, Costa Rica isn't some weird exception. Studies across Latin America are showing the same pretty troubling pattern. From Peru and Brazil all the way to Argentina, a huge chunk of educators believe in these neuromyths. It's a massive issue, and it shows there's this huge gap between what scientists know in the lab and what's being taught in the classroom.
But here's where things get interesting, and a little hopeful. A study in Brazil found this really cool connection. The higher someone's level of education, especially if they had a master's or a PhD, the less likely they were to believe in this stuff. And that tells us something super important. A good science education is like the best vaccine you can get against misinformation.
Okay, so we've seen how powerful the myth is. Now for the really fun part. Let's completely tear it down with some actual hard science.
Let's just put it right out there, side by side. The myth says you've got this huge, dark, unused part of your brain just sitting there. But the reality? Oh, the reality is that your brain is like a massive city that literally never shuts down. It's a completely integrated system where every single part has a job, and all the different neighborhoods are constantly talking to each other, even when you're just chilling out, doing nothing.
And we know this for a fact. The evidence is just overwhelming. For starters, just look at brain scans. You put anyone inside an fMRI machine, and their whole brain lights up with activity, even when they're asleep. And then, think about energy. Your brain is only about 2% of your body weight, but it burns through 20% of your calories. Why would evolution create such an energy hog just to let 90% of it sit around doing nothing? It makes no sense. And sadly, we also know from brain injuries that damage to almost any part of the brain causes huge problems. There are no spare parts up there.
So, if we're not using just 10%, what does that mean for us? For our potential? Well, this is where the real story gets so much cooler than the myth. The truth is way, way more empowering.
So let's just say it, loud and clear. This is the big reveal. Right now, as you're watching this, you are using 100% of your brain, all of it. The real secret isn't about unlocking some hidden room. It's realizing you've had the keys to the entire palace your whole life.
And the science on this is crystal clear. The brain doesn't have sections that are off. It's a team. It's a dynamic, always-on network where every piece is part of the system.
You see, this means we've been asking the totally wrong question this whole time. We need to stop asking, how do I unlock the other 90%, and start asking, How do I improve the 100% I'm already using? Because that's where the real superpower is.
And it all comes down to this incredible word, neuroplasticity. It's the proven scientific fact that your brain isn't some fixed object. It's more like clay. It is constantly rewiring and remodeling itself based on what you do, what you think, and what you learn. When you learn a new language or pick up an instrument, you are literally physically changing your brain. That is your untapped potential. Not some hidden percentage, but the infinite ability to change and improve the brain you already have.
So if this whole 10% idea is just a giant myth, it kind of makes you wonder, right? What other things we take for granted about our brains, like being left-brained or right-brained, or having a certain learning style, are also just neuromyths waiting to be busted?
If this helped you rewire your own thinking a little bit, do us a favor and hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives that separate the real science from the myths.